the show Right Reason, where we reason rightly and are really the host of the show. I'm just asking questions. Dr. Charles Rice, Professor Emeritus, University of Notre Dame Law School, there since the late 1960s.
Right.
And truly one of the most respected, Catholic scholars probably in the country, heck, the Western world, right?
Yeah, I like that. Keep going.
Yeah. His calls for the first person in the history of the church whose calls for canonization has been entered before he died. So that's amazing.
Yeah, right. Don't bet on it, right? Right.
We're spending this entire season talking about St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, this massive volume here of just millions of pages, well, not millions, but many pages, exploring really from a sort of a philosophical leaning the much larger questions of life and how they relate to ultimately, at the end of the day, truth and our end. At the end of the day, what did he care about?
Yeah. He
cares about people getting to heaven.
Right.
And that's what this is really all about at the end of the day. You get into the nitty-gritty and you start thinking about things, but it's at the end, never lose sight. You take the field to have more points on the
Right.
board, at the scoreboard at the end of the game, and you study this to get to heaven. That's what we're doing here. When Thomas is going through thinking about the nature of man and his ability to think and reason and all of that, he gets into some things. Let's open it up now. He talks about speculative reasoning, sort of under the category of abstraction and reflection. What does he mean by speculative reasoning?
Well, when we were talking about how the mind operates and so on, the acts of the intellect, the formation of the idea, judgment and reasoning. Judgment is where you say that is a book or that is not a book, and then we're talking about truth, right? And truth is the correspondence of what I say with reality. And
so when the world says today, well, don't be judgmental, is that kind of like going against your nature?
Right, yes. And actually, truth with a capital T is a person,
right.
Christ was God. But what St. Thomas did was not divide the intellect, but he treated the intellect in two ways. When we talk about the intellect, we talk about the intellect, reason, or mind, or whatever. They're synonymous here. But he talked about the speculative intellect and the practical intellect. Speculative reason and practical reason. And the speculative reason is his treatment of it, with both of them, speculative and practical reason. He asks what the object is and what the first principle is. And the object of the speculative reason is being, existence, right? Being. And the first principle of the speculative reason is the principle of non-contradiction, or if you want to call it the principle of contradiction. And it's basically that being can't be non-being. There are some things that are self-evident, and that's one of them, the principle of non-contradiction. The fancy way to state it is that a thing cannot be and not be at the same time under the same aspect.
Okay.
All right? What I'm taking out of my pocket is a pen.
We remember this from the first season.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's simple, but it's true. It's a pen, all right? It could also be a dart. I could throw it at somebody. It could be a shovel. I could dig a hole with it. But in terms of its penness, it either is a pen or is not a pen. That's the principle of excluded middle, the principle of identity. It is what it is. And that's the first principle of the speculative reason. And it's denied today. There are...
What do you mean it's denied?
Well, I mean, there's so many people say, well, no, there's no such thing. You can't, it can be whatever I want it to be. See? And now it can be it's got different aspects. It's black and silver. It's a cylinder, it's hard. But in terms of its penness, it's either a pen or it's not a pen. And say, well, what difference does that make? Well, as St. Thomas put it, he said, it applies in the moral realm. That it is impossible, cannot be, that a single action, that is a specific action by this guy at this time, can be both right and wrong.
Sure.
It's either one or the other.
Right.
And the whole idea of the speculative reason is that there is an objective truth.
Mm-hmm.
And things can't contradict themselves. I mean, that's the speculative reason is not something that sometimes people say, yeah, but that's true maybe in this society, but not in that society.
Right.
Or suppose there's some planet out there where that's not true.
Yeah.
It can't be, because it's a principle of being.
Okay.
It applies to everything. And being can't be non-being.
So here we're talking about, in the realm of being, you're talking about something in that which is intrinsic to an action is intrinsically evil, intrinsically moral, and you can't be both.
Yeah, well, there's some actions that are morally neutral.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Whether you pick chocolate or vanilla ice cream, in the usual case, there's no moral significance to that.
Sure.
All right, but if there is moral significance, it can't be both. Now that's the speculative reason, and what Thomas says is that the object of the speculative reason is being. The first principle is a principle of non-contradiction, self-evident.
Mm-hmm.
And incidentally, that's one of the hardest things for people to get today,
Right.
is that there are some things that are self-evident.
Right.
And that's one of them.
I would imagine you would, standing up in front of a class of youngsters, this might have been how do you know it's self-evident?
Yeah, and the answer is, I can't prove it to you.
Right.
How do you prove that? How do you prove the principle of non-contradiction? I can't.
Yeah.
All right? It's self-evident. And self-evident means that you're simply stating both terms.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. You know it's true.
Mm-hmm.
The principle of sufficient reason. How do you know there always had to be an eternal being? We're going to get into this later on.
Yeah.
Because you know that that everything has to have a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Every effect has to have a cause. So Thomas goes on, and in addition to the speculative reason, he talks about reason in terms of the practical reason.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And the object of the practical reason is the good.
Okay.
All right?
When you say practical reason, what do we mean? Like speculative sounds like, oh, I'm not sure, I'm just speculating. What does that mean?
No, speculative reason is it's the reason that examines the nature of things, examines being, and the practical reason examines conduct, actually.
Okay.
And the question is, what does it mean to say that something is good? The object of the practical reason is the good. All right.
Mm-hmm.
The first principle of the practical reason, is that the good is that which all things seek.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and notice he
Go
says.
through that a little bit more. That's a little heavy, maybe.
Okay, now the good. What is the good? What does it mean to say something is good? Well, he said. Thomas says the good is that which all things seek. Notice that he said all things.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the sidewalk with cracks in it, you see grass growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because the grass is seeking its good.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it mean to say something is good?
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, but the example I use in a class is that if you had your friend who was saying, I'm going to save money these days because gasoline is so expensive.
Yeah.
I'm going to put water in my gas tank, all right? And if you were his friend, what would you say to him? You know, if you were his
Stupid
friend,
move.
Well, no, you say, yeah, he looks stupid, right? You should do good by your car.
Yeah.
And the good is not good for the car to put water in the gas tank.
Right.
And he says, well, yeah, but this is a Chevy. All right? No, in the nature of the car,
Yeah.
it's not good to put water in the gas tank.
Right.
All right? He says, yeah, but who are you to tell me? what to do with my car. I say, okay, smart guy, if you don't believe it, look in the glove compartment at the manual. All right? He does. He opens up page 8. It says, in gas tank, gasoline should go, water should not go in gas tank.
Yeah.
He looks at it and he says, yeah, that's what it says, but who are they to tell me what to do with my car?
Yeah.
Like the abortion thing. Who are
Right.
they to tell me what to do with my body?
Right. Right.
And so he puts the water in, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's pro-choice, he's sincere, and he's a pedestrian, all right?
Yeah.
Why? Why? Because he's violated the good of his car.
Exactly.
And the good is that which is in accord with the nature of the thing you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The
So
good.
these are predetermined. We don't get to assign the good to something. We get to conform ourselves to it.
Yeah, well, everything has a nature,
Mm-hmm.
and that is denied today.
Yeah.
In terms of the crazy epistemology
Mm-hmm.
in colleges and elsewhere.
Can you tell folks you taught college at Notre Dame? Epistemology, speculative.
Epistemology is just the science of knowing. All right.
Sure.
And the point is that we all have a nature.
Yeah.
There is a nature. I mean, we're going to have lunch in a little while. We're not going to eat barbed wire sandwiches. All right?
Well, from this one deli we get the food from, you might think that.
Because we're not trash compactors. All right?
Sure.
So there is a good. Now, I understand where we're going here. We're talking here about reason being able to know objective truth.
Correct.
Objective truth. And when we went back to the speculative reason and to the spiritual soul, we saw that reason can know the nature of things.
Mm-hmm.
It can know the essence of things. It can know the essence of a car, of an automobile.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the good, because there is a nature to that car, the good is that which is in accord with the nature of the things. Now you have something objective to talk about.
Right, right, right.
And the guy who says, well, I'm going to put water in my gas tank, right? He may be he may feel that that's what he should do,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not good.
Right.
And in the natural law, and we talked about this last time, last year, whenever it was.
Last season.
Last season, yeah. In the natural law, the thing you have to keep in mind is that there is an objective reality.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do something which is not good, not in accord with your nature, when you lie or when you steal,
Mm-hmm.
or commit adultery or whatever it might be, you're doing something objectively wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you were subjectively culpable for it depends on whether you knew it was wrong and chose to do it,
Mm-hmm.
which is a totally separate question.
Sure.
And we generally don't have the right or capacity to judge that.
Mm-hmm.
But the modern culture takes looks at the concept or the injunction, judge not lest you be judged,
Mm-hmm.
as if that means that we can't judge as to the nature of anything.
Right.
And we can't judge that anything is right.
It's the one line in Scripture that everybody seems to know in contemporary society.
Right, but you see, it's applied so that it means that you can't judge that any action is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Bentham, the great utilitarian philosopher,
Right.
said all these statements of morality and religion are mere sentiment.
Yeah.
They are feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't know objective reality. And in truth, what that term means, judge not lest you be judged, is don't judge the person.
Right.
All right? I mean, what Thomas is doing is saying when he gets into the practical reason,
Mm-hmm.
saying there is an objective good,
Mm-hmm.
all right? And the question is next. We already talked about the good of the car, that water is not good in the gas tank of a car. what is the good of human beings? That's what we're going to get into next, which is the question, how do we know what is good for human, what is good for us to do? And what Thomas says is he says, we know connaturally, essentially in a practically self-evident way, that there are certain inclinations of human nature that we know to be good. What do you mean to be good? To be in accord with our nature.
Sure.
And our conduct should be pursuant to those inclinations.
Do you see that, as you sort of move through the epochs of philosophy, there's ancient with the Greeks and then scholastic with Thomas and others, and you move into, sort of the traditional academic breakdown of modern philosophy and contemporary philosophy. Do you see that in these last roughly 200 years or so of philosophy, that it has really been kind of an attack on the philosophy, so to speak, of the Summa and the idea that you can know something? I mean, Thomas takes this as a self-evident given. You can know. And yet you've got Kant and all these guys running around saying, well, you don't know that you can know.
Right. Right. The key issue is epistemology, again, the science of knowing. William of Ockham in the 14th century after St. Thomas was a believing Catholic, all right? But he said, wait a minute, St. Thomas is reducing God to our level by saying that we can know from reason about the existence and some of the attributes of God. And what William of Ockham said was that we can't know those things. He believed them, but he said we can't know them with our reason. And that was kind of the beginning of what we're still living through. That his followers, you can't blame this on him directly, but his followers and people who went after him took that to the point where we can't know anything about anything. And that's where we are today.
And where we are essentially is there really is no truth.
There's no objective reality.
Objective truth.
That's
true
exactly
for you,
right.
true for me.
Right. Alan Bloom made this point very strongly in his book, where he said the enemy for these students today is the one who thinks he knows what's true. Yeah. All right? It's a given to them that you can't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't like what Hitler did, but I can't say that he was wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
That's insane.
Well,
but it's the position.
It's irrational. It's non-rational.
It's the position we're in today.
But that's why this is a 13-part series.
That's why it's a 13-part series. That's right. Dr. Charles Rice, Doctor, thank you very much.
All right.
Please be sure and stay tuned this whole season. As he said, we're going to be talking about St. Thomas and the Summa, these kinds of issues. This is what's in the Summa. And sorely lacking in the mind of contemporary man today, and unfortunately many places of the church as well. It's just too much feelings. You don't get to heaven because you feel good. You get to heaven and then you feel good. Wrapping up with Right Reason and Dr. Charlie Rice, it's Michael Voris here at churchmilitant.tv. Thanks very much. God love you. We'll see you next time.